We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles!
Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Eric, we both just behind the scenes a little bit, like we both came on literally with the airing of grievances paper. Because of how extensive the misgivings of this team have been over the course of the last couple of weeks. And, you know, Eric, since we last talked, right, you have the Alvarado suspension come down, so now you're dealing with that. Even though he was a weird arm, Jose Ruiz is now with the Braves, so you're now down another guy in your bullpen. Bryce Harper gets hit in the elbow and is out, and then comes back and is now out with a wrist injury for at least, probably the next 2 weeks. Jesus Luzardo decides that in 2 starts, he's going to give up 20 earned runs. Listen, let's start on a positive, Eric. We are all wearing, both of us, some really cool Philly Drinkers merch. So the Eric, describe. You have the
Ben Franklin with a nice pint here.
Nice. I got the gang goes to the World Series. So if you have if you like the Always Sunny references, that they have some really cool stuff over there. Use the code Drunk on Broad 15. You'll get a little discount. We'll get a little kickback. And Eric, I have to share this because I came across this the other day. They have this really cool, I'm going to spotlight it. They have this baseball box, which in this baseball box is $19. In this box, you're going to get 3 t-shirts, a hat, and 2 Philly Drinker stickers for $19. And if you use the code, this isn't a math pod, but you're going to get $3 off. So you're going to get all of that for $17.
It's a solid deal.
It's a pretty good deal. So go check them out. They've got a bunch of other really cool stuff. So, all right, Eric, where do we begin? Right, because we've got the Phillies hitting, which has been inconsistently frustrating. We've got the prospects waiting in the wings, and when we may or may not see them. We've got bullpen issues with potential internal and external solutions. We've got starting pitching, which has been kind of all over the place a little bit, and we've got some injuries.
Yeah, there's
certainly tell me where you want to start.
Where to start? I don't know. I guess let's get the offense out of the way, because that, I think, is the thing that is the bullpen struggling. I think that's something that we kind of knew was going to happen until the trade deadline, and we could add some arms, especially with Alvarado going down. But the offense starts out the year cold, gets hot, gives us some glimmers of hope, and now all of a sudden we're getting production from like 3 guys. We lose Bryce, so it's just been it's been frustrating, the amount of runners just left on base, the amount of times we have guys in scoring position and just can't get anything going. I was out the other night and we were joking around, bases loaded, no outs, and we're like, how many runs do you think they score here? And 3 of the 5 or 6 people I'm standing with all said 0. So confidence in with runners in scoring position is at a low.
Is that a real? Yeah.
And there's reason for it, right? I mean, when you got Bryson Stott hitting 120 over his last 7 games, Edmundo Sosa hitting 095 over his last 7 games, Johan Rojas hitting 214, Marsh hitting 214, and all year, I looked this up because of this platoon situation we have going on here, he's only hitting 218 against lefties this year. I'm sorry, against righties, which isn't that the whole reason he's in there against righties to do better than that? Weston Wilson, it's hard to find a reason for him to still be on the roster. He looks lost in left field. He's hitting 152 for the year, 148 against lefties. And the whole reason he's here, just like Marsh, the opposite, he's here to hit lefties and he's not doing it. So it's just been abysmal. And even some of the bigger guys that we're supposed to have hitting, right? Like I said, Stott, JT, Max Kepler, none of them are producing. So you're relying basically on Alec Bone's been hot. Schwarber is, he's had a slow start to June. He hit the home run yesterday, but he's striking out at a pretty high clip right now. And Castellanos has been somewhat consistent. Turner's been good. That's offensively anyway. But yeah, lots of issues, lots of flaws going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the inconsistency has been really frustrating because you're now talking an opportunity where they're in a huge slump, right? They're going to drop. They've already lost the first 2 games of the series with the Pirates, so they're going to lose this series, right? They dropped the series in Toronto. Is it 8 out of the last 9 or 7 out of the last 8?
Yeah, it all started with that Milwaukee series, really.
They lost the last game in Oakland.
Right, last game in Oakland, 3 to Milwaukee. They beat Toronto the first game, but then lost the next 2, and then the first 2 to Pittsburgh.
So you're just getting. You're just getting a lot of inconsistency, and that part has been like, it's just been really frustrating. But so I was listening to Matt Gelb yesterday. Matt Gelb was on WIP with Mike Sealski and Rob Ellis, and the one stat that they were referencing was the OPS for guys this year versus the same guys last year. And the guys whose offensive production is up, there's 3 guys. Everybody else in this lineup, whether they were here last year or not, the OPS is down. The only 3 guys are guys that you mentioned before. So Schwarber, Castellanos, and Rojas. All of those guys, their OPS is up. Everybody else is seeing a downtick in production. And the hard part for me is looking at their at-bats, right? Because the way you described it before we came on was like spot on. Guys who I don't loathe watching their at-bats. And, for what it's worth, like JT Realmuto, if he could ground out into a double play with nobody on base, like he finds himself in these double plays. Stott has been, when he was in the leadoff spot, he was playing well for a little bit, and then it kind of dropped off. The production that you're getting from your outfield, I mean, Eric, I think we might be able to argue you're getting some of the worst offensive production from your outfield collective between Kepler and the platoon of Marsh and Rojas and Castellanos. I don't know what the solution is, but I know that like you went from playing 2-3 weeks ago where you had the best record in baseball to now where you're dropping 8 of 9. And I know it's hard. It's hard to kind of stay this route because it is a really long season and these things do ebb and flow. But when it looks as bad as it did, to the point where right, Wheeler's on leave with the expecting birth of his child, and that combined with Nola being out still, you end up having to do the bullpen game. And for what it's worth, it wasn't as awful as it could have been. It wasn't good, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. I'm not sure what the solution is. I don't know if it's that something tells me that there needs to be some kind of inflection point, whether that's moving on from a guy that has been in your lineup, that is a team guy that they just move on from because they need to shake up this lineup, whether that's internal, external. I don't know what the answer is, but I know this isn't it.
Yeah, and we've seen it all too often, right? It's like they'll go, and the offense will heat up again at some point, I'm sure, but it's like you can't keep relying on the same thing here because we keep seeing the same inconsistencies now. It's been going on with this core group for how long? So yeah, there's absolutely got to be something done. I don't like they called up Otto Kemp yesterday. I like what he's been doing in AAA. I don't think he's like a long-term solution. I think, I was hoping that, maybe bringing him up maybe adds a little bit of juice from the right-hand side. We'll see. It's too early to tell. But internally, in terms of outfield, you have Justin Crawford, who's kind of waiting in the wings, but it seems like they're not quite ready to call him up yet, which I think is fine. Like, I don't want to rush that production either, or that development either, and ruin that for him. But I think realistically, like at the trade deadline, we have to be looking for something, and it's getting to the point where we were talking last time. Like, I think it's got to be something better than Cedric Mullins. Like, we have to look at something, and we're gonna have to give up prospects, but at the same time, it's like we got to figure out which ones are which, and you have to look at what's our window with this club right now, right? So it's a tough bind, but they're definitely going to have to shake some things up here at the deadline, both in terms of center field and the bullpen.
Yeah. No, I think for me, I look at this and I go like, I look at when you say that like Marsh and Rojas, and they're like, all right, you can kind of give them a pass on the offense because they make up for it defensively. But do they really? Like their defense has been. I mean, if you're going to be that bad at the plate, you need to be like Gold Glove in the field, and they're not. Those two guys seem to be like they are off the bench guys on your average team, not starting guys for your guys that for a team that has World Series aspirations. Like that's where I look at this and Eric, how many times have we seen the Braves bring up a guy in his 20, 21, 22, right? Like, and just bring him up and plug him in the lineup. And I think that's kind of where I am. I really don't want to wait any longer to see Justin Crawford. I want to see Justin Crawford. I want to see if he has what it takes. I want to see Aiden Miller. And if that means that, like, I know it's not going to happen, but I want to, like, if that means, like, bring Aiden Miller up and he plays shortstop and Trey Turner goes to the outfield and Justin Crawford and you trade, Marsh and Rojas for, I don't know, whatever bullpen piece you can get to kind of build the depth there. You're not going to get anything huge in return. And then you bring Justin Crawford up and he plays center. Like, I'm just kind of at that point where I want to see what that looks like, because Trey Turner's defense has been kind of the same thing we've been talking about. Very inconsistent, very like makes great plays sometimes, doesn't other times. And I wonder what that lineup then looks like if you're talking about, taking a Marsh and a Rojas out, which at this point seems like automatic outs. You take Kepler out because he's almost an automatic out at this. Like he's again been really inconsistent. and you build the depth of your bench, and you have these young guys in there, and you see how productive they can be, because the Phillies, for whatever reason, notoriously are in this. They almost wait too long to bring those guys up, and then they're not bringing them up until they're 24, 25, 20. Like, I'm kind of just there, and I don't know if that's like my like instant reaction right now because of the slump that they're in, and I'm feeling frustrated because you have all these guys that should be offensively productive, and they're just not.
Yeah, and I think the thing is now it's like we're getting to the point where how much longer of a leash can you give players like this, right? Like when Rojas came up, everyone said, the bat's not going to be there yet, but it hasn't really gotten like better. He had that little hot streak back at like the end of April, early May. Marsh, same thing, right? Like he'll go through like a hot streak, but then this is how he plays most of the season. Like how long are we going to wait and see? And like, oh, maybe this is the year, maybe this is the year, maybe this is the year. When I think we're at the point where it's not. And the one actually that I'm like most devastated about is the fact that this might be Bryson Stott. Because I really thought after 2023, not saying he was going to be like a perennial all-star or anything, but just we were going to have a really productive player at second base. And, last year it came out at the end of the season that, he was dealing with that injury or whatever. But I mean, he had just like the other guys, right? When the offense was hot back in the middle of May, he was part of that. But since then, we're kind of seeing again, there's that inconsistency from him. So there's so many, there's a lot of holes right now. And I think the biggest thing you were talking about earlier with like, we basically have a double platoon going on in left and center field, and all four guys stink. So it's like 80% of our outfield is unusable right now. And it's just like,
So
when are
bad.
we going to do something about this in terms of consistency, right? Because, and it's baseball. So everyone's going to go through their ebbs and flows and everything. But when we're seeing it time and time again, I think people have the right to be frustrated about it. But I think you're gonna see other guys, I think, maybe snap out of it. But there has to be some, like you said, some sort of like inflection in this lineup to just like get them going. And I think it's been just stagnant. I've seen a lot of stuff the last couple of days. Twitter's a funny place when the Phillies are playing poorly.
It's a good way to describe it.
Yeah. So there's valid player things to point out, and I think I've seen a lot of stuff about Dombrowski and Thompson. Like, let them do their thing. We talked about Rob Thompson last time. Like, he's fine. Kevin Long's getting a lot of flack, but it's one of those things where hitting coaches, I really don't think matter unless you're talking about like in your Double-A, or if you're a team like the Marlins with a bunch of young guys or something like that. Who was it that fired?
I would tend to agree with you.
Who fired? Was it the Rockies who fired their hitting coach earlier? So who fired their hitting coach earlier? Yeah, because Bud Black came back in for that.
I was going to say, yeah.
I think it was Ken Rosenthal posted something, or Jason Stark, one of those guys, posted something that like kind of tongue in cheek about firing the hitting coach. From the point before that, I think their average was like, say, 236 or something like that. In like the week after the new hitting coach came in, it went up to like 239. And it's like, the players are gonna hit, whether like a hitting coach isn't gonna
at this level. Yeah.
The biggest thing I think people want is just like a shakeup somehow. So if they were to axe Kevin Long because of just hey, this is a wake up call, we got to do something differently, I'm okay with it. But it doesn't matter who you bring in here. Like, these guys are not going to change their approach that much. They're veteran players for the most part, right? They've been in the league for at least 3 to depending on who it is, like 3 to 10, 12 years. Not much is going to change, I don't think. Where we need to be putting the blame here is on the players, and that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, and listen, Eric, it doesn't make you feel any better when you have this double platoon of non-production from these four guys, and a guy that you moved on from earlier in the year with Cody Clemens, and he's had a pretty productive run with the Twins. Listen, Lace, I know you hate these hats. I got you, but this is a sponsor, so I gotta wear it. It's all good. I don't wear it outside of this room. Love you. Keep the baby safe. But it's the kind of thing, Eric, where I look at this and I go, like, you made a decision to move on from that guy, and he didn't have any other options, and you couldn't find a spot for him, and now that's a guy that you might be able to that's a left-handed bat that you might be able to find a spot for in this lineup.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Bryce being out right now, right?
Right?
That would be ideal. The thing is, I think it's like, hindsight here is 2020.
Yeah,
At the
that most
time
definitely.
when it all was going down, they were kind of playing okay, and left-handed bats weren't really what they needed at the time. They needed the right-handed bats. I think overall, who would I rather have yet, him or Weston Wilson long term? Probably Cody. But when it comes to it, like at the time, I can see why they did it. The thing here is that we have too many guys, whether it's injury or just improper handling of personnel, that are like quad A players, right? Or would be
It's a good way
solid
to
bench
describe it.
players, but should not be in the lineup every day. Prime example, and I love the guy, Edmundo Sosa. Edmundo Sosa
Yeah.
is perfect in a role where he gets, 3 starts a week, where he's given some guys spells in the infield and able to, get his playing time. But we're seeing when he has to play every day, and this has been the same thing now for like 3 years. When he has to play every single day, he gets exposed. And I love the
Most
guy,
definitely.
and I want him on our team. And it's unfortunate right now because of injuries and everything, right? But like he's not an everyday player. Weston Wilson probably shouldn't even be in a platoon. Marsh and Rojas platoon. Like if we had one position where it was a platoon, I'd be like, okay. But I don't really like. I don't foresee a situation where a World Series potentially World Series contending team can have this many like platoon situations and expect that to work. It's just not how it goes. Like the Dodgers might be able to do that because they have a bajillion dollars, and every guy they have on that roster, could almost be an all-star. So they can platoon different guys because it's like,
Yeah.
well, this guy is just as good as the next guy, right? But it's like we are the depth for the Phillies just isn't there right now. And it's really like the thing is you look at this and Bryce being out just changes the whole complexion of the lineup, right? So that is going to be really tough. And I don't foresee this getting any better until he's back in the lineup because the lineup gets so much less scary when you don't have that Harper Schwarber combination right there in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, you really have a good opportunity to kind of just pitch around guys and face who you want, and it's you're obviously going to be in that situation for the next week or week and a half. I'm very perplexed at they seem like they're in this holding pattern where like they really don't know what to do. They seem like they're kind of chasing their tail with the loss of Alvarado in the bullpen. Like they're trying to figure that out. You know, you have guys that are making really good. Like if we want to kind of transition to starting pitching, like I don't know if Jesus Luzardo is tipping pitches. I don't know if it's arm fatigue. I'm not sure what it is, but someone needs to get in the lab with him because he was probably top of the list for NL Cy Young in those first handful of starts. And then in I don't know how many innings, but the number of innings compared to the 20 earned runs is like atrocious.
Yeah. It's honestly more innings than it should be too, because they just let
Yeah,
him,
I mean the
especially
one.
that game. It was, let's see, was that Milwaukee, right? Yeah, it was Milwaukee, right?
Yes,
When Reese teed off on them.
I think that was the Saturday. Was that the Saturday game?
Yes, yeah, that was a Saturday game. Yeah, I mean, and it's a shame because like we talked 2 weeks ago, and our I just feel like the whole tone of the pod was a little was a little bit more positive. But so many things have happened since then, and Luzardo, I've been a big fan. I think he'll figure it out. Like the nice thing to see
Me
is
too.
that like his he's still throwing, like, he was still hitting like 97, even those 2 games where he wasn't doing well. And then after the game, they talk about it, and it's like, no, nothing's wrong with him. We don't see anything. It's like, well, that's kind of alarming. I'd almost rather you see something like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
maybe he's doing this, maybe he's doing that.
like tell me you're going to go in and look at it. Don't tell me you
Yeah,
don't see anything.
yeah, and I
Because like I'm looking at the stats, so it's 20 earned runs in 5 2/3.
yeah,
His
I mean,
ERA jumped 2 full points
yep,
in 2 starts.
yeah, which is bad, just because, like, the one thing we've been saying about this team the whole season is the rotation is strong. And I think we're seeing now, like, obviously Nola keeps having these setbacks. Obviously Luzardo not pitching well, Wheeler being out on paternity leave. And then right before all this stuff happens, they permanently move Walker to the bullpen. So now it's just like the starting staff is, there's some holes, but it'll figure itself out. Like, I think that's like the least of my concerns, because we're seeing Ranger just pitching consistently well. Sanchez is doing his thing. Wheeler's going to be back. It's not like we have any reason for him to be worried about Wheeler, right? He's
True.
out for personal stuff. I think the big question marks are going to be, how does Nola bounce back when he returns, right? There's a lot hinging on that. And then really what we're going to see between Mick Abel and eventually when Andrew Painter comes up, because we do still have the Phillies are lucky in the fact that they have 2 guys right now that are like, obviously Abel's here and Painter's kind of knocking on the door. So it's not a major concern right now. It's just like the timing of it is bad because the bullpen's bad and the offense is bad right now. So like it's kind of everything's kind of going poorly at once, but I don't anticipate starting pitching being an issue past, this week, really.
So the one thing, Eric, that I noticed, and I didn't, only because I kind of tuned out after that first the first game where things kind of really unraveled against Milwaukee, where they really just kind of left him in.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of moved off the couch from watching the game to just like having it on in the background and just kind of listening to the carousel of runs being scored. But then in watching him in the last game, it was in Toronto, right? Like the thing that jumped off the table for me in the second start was the number of times where guys are swinging early in counts.
Mm-hmm.
Like swinging at first pitches, second pitches, not letting him get deep into the count, where some of his more effective pitches are the ones that he throws later in the counts. And they're just kind of, I would love to see the approach change a little bit and switch up how, maybe you're throwing pitches that are out of the zone early, even though that might put you behind a little bit, maybe gives him the opportunity to kind of go and use the kind of almost pitch backwards.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because that Toronto start, like every all contact was hard off of him pretty much in that start, and that was
Very much
a little alarming. So yeah, I think he's just finding too much of the plate right now. So it's a fix, right? I mean, like that's something, he's a professional. Like I'm not concerned that that's going to be like we're not going to see this type of production from Luzardo for the rest of the season. Obviously, we want to see it get fixed sooner rather than later. But it's his stuff is still there, so that's what's kind of giving me a little bit of hope that he'll bounce back here. I don't want to be. I was saying this in the game against Milwaukee, but I had purchased a Jesus Luzardo player tee a couple weeks ago. My first time wearing it was actually the Milwaukee start, so I am not going to wear it on any more Luzardo days because I don't want to be the reason that this is happening.
Goodness, that's like you try to do what you can do, but like it's like I just it's almost like you're at a loss for words. Like I don't know what the changes, especially in the starting pitcher. Right, I know, right? You're going to get a jolt when you get Wheeler back. Like the conversation when Ranger Suarez came back was like, you have this wealth of starting pitching. Do we explore the option of moving him to the bullpen? Now he's probably been in the last month and a half your best your second best starting pitcher.
Mhm.
So like taking him off the table and putting him in the bullpen isn't really an option at this point. You've got your young phenom coming soon, probably sometime in July. I'm curious if the addition for the bullpen comes internally from one of those starting pitching options.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I I don't want to and I think they're not going to do this right away, just especially leading up to the trade deadline. But I think Abel would actually be now eventually I want him to transition back to a starter, but for this season or for the
Sure.
fall, he's got stuff that plays in the bullpen. Like if you can have him come out and just need to pitch an inning or two. I mean, he already throws hard anyway. Imagine what he could do if he doesn't have to hold anything back to maintain stamina for 6 innings. I also think that what we saw with Luzardo might mean that he could be a potential move to the bullpen because he's got stuff that plays in the bullpen too, throwing 97 with the dirty breaking balls and everything like that. He can go balls to the wall for an inning or two as well and not have to hold anything back. So I think we do have some options there. And especially if Luzardo, if we continue to see struggles over longer starts or stretches, they could be options to do it. We know for a fact that Nola's not doing it. It's obviously Wheeler. Sanchez has done it, but I don't think he needs to move right now. I think right now your two best options are moving Abel or Luzardo. The issue is, I think, depending on what upgrades they need to make in center field, now you have to look at potentially preserving trade capital in keeping Abel as a starter because you move him to the bullpen. Now teams look at it, well, that's not as valuable in terms of trade value. So
I just what's the timeline for Nola coming back?
Well, it seems like so it was the ankle. Now it's something in his side. I think I saw he's supposed to throw another bullpen this week though. It doesn't sound like it's anything like debilitating, but it's just for a guy who we've always preached about consistency and health. It's kind of weird that there's been some weird injuries coming up here for him, and it sounds like he's going to need especially now that he's been out for almost a month. He's probably going to need some at least a rehab starter too. So we're probably still looking at the middle to I would say probably middle to end of June, like 2 weeks or so.
Gotcha. Okay, so and then the injury with Bryce,
Mm-hmm.
and then him coming back with the wrist. And any inkling that those two might be connected?
So I don't know. I mean, it probably couldn't have helped anything, but you would think like, okay, the wrist thing they said was bothering him last year. He said it's pretty much been bothering him this entire year so far. So I think it was going on before that happened. Again, it probably didn't help things, but you would think, how many days did he miss with the elbow thing? I mean, he missed 5 or 6 days there, and the wrist thing didn't get any better. So I'm actually more concerned about that than I am anything with Nola, because this seems like it's been lingering, and they don't really seem to be trying to fix anything. So I guess we'll have to wait and see here. But again, our lineup without him is way worse, and I don't know what the timeline is for him right now.
All right, so let's talk a little trade. What before we get even into the options, what are the guys that are non-negotiable for you
In terms of prospects?
Yeah.
As of right now, I think the only two that I would say are untouchable are Painter and Miller. Painter just seems to be like such a well respected across like every single prospects ranking list, and the fact that he was ranked ahead of guys like Bubba Chandler and some of these other really top tier prospects just show, I think, and he's showing a little rust right now in AAA, which is normal when you're coming back from Tommy John surgery. But just like he throws like 98 and it looks like he's like putting no effort into it at all. Yes. I just I think the sky's the limit for him, and I do not want to see him go somewhere else and become, just below Paul Skeens or something like that. And then Aiden Miller, I just like the talent he has, and what we're seeing with eventual needs to improve the infield. I just don't think you can get rid of him. So those are my two that I would say unless you are given like a crazy opportunity, those guys are untouchable.
I would tend to agree with you. I think with where this lineup kind of projects, I would tend to add Crawford to that list only because of your inconsistency in center field, and they might have an opportunity to kind of make that move based on the production that they're not getting at this level right now. But I mean, you've got 53 days until the trade deadline. So, you're going to look at the options. I know. So the guys at Philly Love Sports and Pain, they had put together a list, and it basically just said like, I'm trying to find the tweet right now, but they had they said get on the phone with the A's, and it was obviously it was Rooker and it was Miller and who's the other guy? Starts with an S. Soderstrom.
Oh yeah. The issue there is the A's are in no rush to get rid of any of these guys because they're all under team control for so long. And then Soderstrom plays first base. So, I mean, I guess if Bryce were to move back to the outfield, that would solve two issues. Rooker, I really like, but he translates more to a DH. And then you got Schwarber and him. I don't see where he fits. Mason Miller, I would love. But the thing is like, to pry any of these guys away from the A's, you're going to have to give up everything. I mean, most of them still have at least a year or two of team control, and they're getting paid peanuts. So, they have absolutely no incentive to move on from any of these guys. Right. Whereas, so they could be like, well, give us 3 of your top 10 prospects, and we'll talk about it. But I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I tend to. I would tend to agree with you, right? The idea is the idea sounds great, right? Because they have a bunch of guys that could really help you. And I think if you want to talk, like Brent Rooker was the guy that we talked about last MLB, the trade deadline in terms of them potentially getting an acquisition. And I look at this, you could kind of slot him in and slot Kepler out, right? Mm-hmm. And you just kind of you know that you're going to get the right-handed offensive production. You know you're going to get that protection in the lineup, and you kind of just live with
bad defense,
average to bad defense, and and the package that you would have to give up to get a combination of him and Miller with the team control. Miller's a guy who's intriguing though.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's a guy that you can put at the back end of your bullpen and you don't have to worry about anything. And I know the Phillies kind of hit him a little bit when they were out there in Oakland. He's a guy I would consider because of their struggles in the bullpen. I think he's a guy that I might consider, like if you said you're going to give up, and I don't know no names specifically, but if they said like 2 of your top 12, 2 of your top 15, I would have to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, especially losing Alvarado, you just I have no faith in the back end of the bullpen right now. So getting a guy like him would be big. He would cost a heavy amount, but then again, you're also getting a little team control with him too. So the value is still there. I think the biggest thing, like right now, I think we're still probably like 3 weeks to a month from really understanding like who's going to be big time sellers and buyers at the deadline. So I think it's really hard to project like who is going to be available. But another guy who might come a little bit cheaper because he is at I think he's a free agent at the end of at the end of the season. Ryan Helsley from St. Louis, who is he's a big name out there right now, and I think Felix Bautista might have one more year of team control for
Okay.
Baltimore. Those guys might come at a little bit of a more shallow price than a guy like Mason Miller. But I think, like, last year it was Carlos Estevez, right? We have the Dave Dombrowski has to go out and be more aggressive than a Carlos Estevez type add to the bullpen. Like, I would be shocked and disappointed if we didn't get one of the big name high leverage guys at the deadline.
Yeah, I think that the other guy Ryan Helsley is on the list of guys that I was looking at. The other guy is Trevor McGill from the Brewers, right?
Mhm.
He's a guy who I'm reading right now is under team control through 27, right? So there's a lot of that becomes really appealing in terms of like the assets that you might have to give up, and again, not to the same level as Mason Miller. You know the left-handed guys are not nearly, when you talk about your, like, I don't even know if like I'm trying to think of like a guy who's been kind of bounced around on trade, like Aroldis Chapman is a guy who's kind of bounced around a little bit, has moved in trade deadlines before, back end of your bullpen, big arm, and you kind of live with the the chaos that kind of comes when he gets on the mound, but maybe
That seems like a prime Dave Dombrowski move. Like, he seems to love bringing in aging veteran relievers. So I could
very
totally
true.
see that happening. But the difference here is, like, okay, I feel like Chapman, he's a wild ride, right? A lot of hard throwing lefties are like that, though. But the fact that he is, I don't even know how old he is, but he's been around forever and he's still pumping like 104. It's kind of impressive. It's a little intriguing. I mean, would I be thrilled if that was the only bullpen move they made? Probably not. But I also think, no one's really going to be in a rush to trade these guys unless you're offering something big. I just think it's such a seller's. I mean, I don't think it is such a
Yeah,
seller's
you're right.
market right now. And it's just, you have to figure out, like, balance. Okay, value on this player versus what you're giving up, and balancing also your timeline here, right? I mean, the core is not getting any younger of this group. So I think they are in, not so much like they have to win it this year. I think you still got another year or two after this, but they have to, like, you're going to have to give up some of your higher level prospects. Like, but there's some guys performing right now in the minor leagues who I think kind of came as a surprise, who you could maybe throw in as well. Like Arun Escobar, he's only down in Clearwater, and I like the guy, but he's still so far away from being able to contribute. Could you move him in a piece? And his trade value has really risen. So it's really all about balance here.
Yeah, and then Eric, you think about the when the Phillies brought up Kirkering, right? The guy who had some success through the early parts of the minor league system, and they just kind of fast tracked him. I wonder if there are pieces like that they're looking at that kind of that could help them internally. That could be additions kind of in that same vein of, like, you got a guy who is in your farm system who can throw hard, and you just kind of bring him up for those, not necessarily high leverage, but, like, let's be honest, everything in playoff baseball is high leverage. So, like, you're bringing him up maybe to get that experience. I don't know if there's something like that. As far as position players, where are you landing on potential position player addition?
So that's kind of where I'm stuck, because, again, I think that there's still so many questions about who's actually going to be available, right? You have your certain teams that are not good. But I haven't really even seen any names thrown out there yet, other than like a Cedric Mullins type. So I don't necessarily have like a specific guy. I think as we start to kind of see the the buyers and sellers kind of line up as we get closer to July, I think I'll be able to have like a better idea of who I actually want, and who's worth giving up prospects for, right? Like, to me,
Yeah.
like, again, Cedric Mullins is okay, but, like, I don't want to give up a top 5 prospect for him. Like,
Yeah,
I want to
most
see
definitely.
who becomes available in terms of that as we get a little close to the trade deadline. Did you have anyone, or do you have anyone up there that
I mean,
was
there's a
intriguing?
couple of guys. So I was reading a couple articles and trying to look through, trying to sort through, some process, some perspective additions, right? Like, you know, the easiest thing, right, what I'm thinking about is good to go back to last year, right? There was a lot of conversation on Luis Robert, but he's
Mhm.
kind of had
I,
a really down year. I'm looking at it right now, and he's hitting 177, like just not having a ton of success at the plate.
mm-mm.
Um, There's a couple of guys on the Diamondbacks, right? Eugenio Suarez, and then Lourdes Gurriel are two guys that could provide some offensive, in some inflection of energy on the offense.
Mhm.
And then a guy that we're watching right now, Brian Reynolds. Right, I don't know how excited the Pirates are going to be to kind of move off of him. He's been a guy who's been a really integral part of their team, even though the team is kind of languishing in this kind of abyss of being decent but not good enough to be contending, but wanting to hold on to talent because I think the move that's going to shock the MLB is when the Pirates are kind of forced to trade Paul Skeens, because I feel like that's on the horizon.
I I think it's another situation where they're going to get as much value. Although I guess when it comes to once he gets to arbitration, because then he's going to be able to say they're going to come at him and probably offer him $750,000, and he's going to come back with like, well, let's see. Considering I already had, and this was 3 years down the road, he's probably going to have 2 Cy
Yeah,
Youngs at that point, a Rookie of the Year, 3 All-Star appearances. He's going to probably warrant making at least 18 to 20, probably more in his first year of arbitration. They're gonna be like, no, thank you. But
yeah,
these pre-arb years, they're gonna be like, well, they're gonna hang on to him and try to drive up some ticket sales on days where he pitches, because the ownership in Pittsburgh should be tried for malpractice. But it's going to be interesting in a couple of years when they're finally going to have to start paying this guy and see the line of suitors who are going to be and what he gets, what the return is there on a trade for him.
I mean, Eric, whatever you have to give up would probably be worth it.
Yeah, because
Like
you're
what,
getting with him, right?
I mean, you're getting a generational talent that's going to
Mhm.
sit at the top end of your staff for as long as you can figure out the way to make the financials work.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
like, the fact that he's had as much success as he has this early, and knowing that he's playing, the shame of it is that this is where MLB is.
Mhm.
The guys in these small market clubs are essentially feeder programs for these for the bigger market teams. Your Dodgers, Yankees. I mean, the Phillies are in those conversations.
Yeah,
The
it'd be
Mets.
in there.
Those bigger market teams that can afford to go all in and push past the luxury aprons and pay whatever is going to come back because they know what that is going to do for their rotation. I mean, you're literally talking about emptying your farm system, and it's basically whoever and whenever it happens, it's literally going to just be like open the books, you pick,
Yeah,
and if there's a guy on that list that you're like absolutely not, then like I don't know what to tell you. Like
yeah.
if you're not willing to part with a guy to get the level of production of Paul Skeens, I don't remember who said it, but like I remember hearing someone say like if you're getting the best player in a trade, that's who wins the trade.
Right.
And whoever is getting Paul Skeens, doesn't matter what you're giving up. Whoever is getting that guy is going to win that trade. And I just I feel bad. I feel bad for Pittsburgh because those guys don't come around often. I just
No.
need him to not go to New York.
Yeah. No New York. Actually, I don't even want him to go to the Dodgers. I'm sick of the Dodgers.
Yeah, no New York, no LA. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's a conversation that we can have down the lines. Like, empty your farm system for Paul Skeens. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, by the time that he would even probably be available, some of our farm guys will probably already be major league players anyway. So it'll be either a new crop of them or swap some of those guys. So we'll see. It's again, it's a fun thing to think about. What's not fun to think about is that our struggling offense has to try to break out of it today against
Paul Skeens. Yeah. He's projected, Eric, it says his projected free agency is after the 29 season.
Right. So that'll be free agency, but I'm wondering if they'll look to trade him when he goes to arbitration because they're paying Brian Reynolds right now. But once they go to arbitration and the arbiter says, no, you have to pay him the $22 million this year, they're going to be like, okay, we don't want to do that. So let's see what we can get now. They might do it for a season. But I could see him on the trade market, a couple years prior to that 2029. Yeah. But when he becomes a free agent, look out.
Open up the checkbook.
Yep.
Who's got it? It literally is just going to come down to who's going to pay him the most.
Yep, absolutely.
So, all right, talk about. Let's. We got anything there? Oh, I have something. Have you? I saw the pitching the pitching ninja.
Mm-hmm.
The content is incredible, but the stat that I saw the Paul Skeens stat that I saw the other day. It's like the inverse of Brandon Marsh. In his last 11 starts, 95 strikeouts, 3 walks.
Yeah, I mean,
almost the same as some of our offensive production.
The bottom of the lineup, yeah. Right. Wow.
I mean, he's just incredible to watch.
He really is. Well, maybe today will be the day where he has a little bit of an off day. Maybe we'll see.
We'll see. Anything we missed, Eric? Anything missed before we jump?
No, I don't think so. I think I would again, maybe today's not the day, but we have a couple big series coming up here. We got Chicago coming in, and they're a good team. Let's see how we can if the Phillies can bounce back a little bit here, and get us out of these these depressing conversations.
Oh my God. I think I need a little bit of inflection. That's the two of us are about to embark on a nice little summer hiatus from our normal everyday job. So we're gonna we'll be checking in throughout the summer, and Eric, let's just hope that something improves because this team has some talent, but we just need them to start putting it together. But
yeah, it's all about consistency.
Feel like that's the word that came up a lot today, Eric.
Yeah.
On the way out, go Phils.
Word of the day. Go Phils.
Hey, listen to this guy. Tell me how you're feeling here. You're screaming.
I am stoked, baby.
You're screaming like it's still the game going on.
We're talking about the fightings here. The fightings.
Said, Mike.
Yeah, stoked.
Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.